Nick Kyrgios is an interesting character. Once hailed as the next world number one, he stormed onto the scene in 2014, knocking out Nadal at Wimbledon and reaching the quarterfinals at just 19. He now, at 27, has just reached his first major final, 8 years later, ranked just 40 in the world. During that time, he has made a name for himself as the trickster on tour, playing unnecessary and yet entertaining tweeners, underarm serves, and drop shots. But that's not all. Kyrgios is also famous for his on-court outbursts and drama, shouting at officials, smashing rackets, and arguing with the crowd. Rafa Nadal once described his antics as showing a lack of respect for the crowd, his opponent, and towards himself. With his fiery temper and controversial opinions, the Australian has made quite a few enemies on the tour, most recently with a once friendly Greek doubles partner, Stefanos Tsitsipas, but one of his most notable feuds is with his Wimbledon final opponent, Novak Djokovic. Nick has gone on record claiming that when he was young, first appearing on the tour, Novak had approached him, offering him help and support. The two began on good terms, practicing together multiple times, even claiming to be friends at one point, later blaming the media for blowing their future rivalry way out of proportion. So, in 2015, whilst playing Stan Wawrinka at the Montreal Masters tournament, Kyrgios made a sexual remark about Wawrinka's girlfriend at the time, leading to a $10,000 fine. He claimed that she'd been involved with his close friend Thanasi Kokkinakis. Djokovic, on the topic of the fine, remarked, "Some players have problems to control themselves on the court. Sometimes when you go through the emotional challenges, it slips out of your mouth. But again, there's no excuse for what he has said. He was fined, he deserved it." He continued, "I think he's going to learn a lesson in a hard way. Hopefully this won't happen to him anymore. I understand that every player goes through certain tantrums, emotional ups and downs during the match. In a big fight and at this level, I understand. But it's not, I would say, fair, and there's no excuse of directing your tantrums to your opponent, especially to somebody that is not even there." He even backed up Kyrgios' suggestion that they were once closer, saying, "I've never had any problems with him personally. Off the court we had nice chats, practiced with each other, hence concluding the first blip in their rocky relationship." The two have played just twice, both in 2017, within 2 weeks of each other, first in Acapulco and the second meeting at Indian Wells. Both matches were fairly close straight-set affairs for the Aussie. Nothing too personal it seemed, with the post-match handshakes offering signs of respect from both. In May of 2019, however, Kyrgios went on the No Challenges Remaining podcast, and despite hesitancy from his team, he stated the tennis legend has a sick obsession with wanting to be liked. He wants to be like Roger. He wants to be liked so much, I can't stand him. This whole celebration thing he does after his matches, it's so cringeworthy. It doesn't matter how many Grand Slams he wins, he will never be the greatest for me, simply because I've played him twice, and if you can't beat me, you're not the greatest of all time. He just rubs me the wrong way. He always says what he thinks needs to be said, never speaks his opinion. That's what I'm doing next time. If I play him and I beat him, I'm doing his celebration in front of him." Novak responded by saying he wasn't losing any sleep over his rival's comments. "Honestly, I think deep down, he's not such a bad guy. I don't know why Kyrgios says all these things. Whether he is seeking attention or has some other motive, he obviously wants to be sincere and transparent." Backing up his statements, Nick tweeted, "Federer, please win," as the pair were to face off in the 2019 Wimbledon final a few months after the podcast. At the Atlanta Open, the Australian signed his name for a fan over a Novak t-shirt, crossing his name out, turning to the camera to say, "That's what I think of you." Not long after, whilst practicing for the US Open, Djokovic lost his temper with some spectators behind him heckling, supposedly responding by saying, "Trust me, I'll come find you." Not able to help himself, Kyrgios tweeted his own response to the video, jokingly saying, "I'm scared." Into a new year, the obsession continued. Nick attended one of Djokovic's matches at the ATP Cup in January, supposedly partaking in heckling the Serb and blowing kisses to the camera. Still refusing to comment much about the situation, Novak said he didn't see him, but knows he's good buddies with his opponent, Gael Monfils, so it's fine. Adding, and Kyrgios knows how to have fun and how to attract attention, that's for sure. During the lockdowns that followed COVID that season, tennis adopted the Instagram Live trend, leading to Kyrgios and Murray having some fun. Clearly drunk, slurring his words after supposedly having 6 glasses of wine, Nick backed his Scottish friend, claiming him to be the better player. However, during another discussion with close friend Kokkinakis, he said, "I don't actually hate anyone. I can admit that people are different. I don't like some of the things he does, but I don't hate him." This attitude didn't last long. Djokovic went about setting up the Adria Tour during the height of COVID in June 2020. It attracted immediate criticism, but everyone was assured that the event would be following all guidelines set out by the Serbian government. These guidelines, however, seem to ignore the social distancing and mask usage, leaving many to wonder whether there was any health and safety guidelines, as stadiums were pretty full. The situation escalated dramatically when many of the players involved caught the virus, including Djokovic himself. Kyrgios was quick to comment, calling the entire event a boneheaded decision. To make things worse, footage then began to circulate of the Serb dancing topless with several other players on a night out during the event. Not shy in sharing his thoughts, Nick tweeted, "Prayers up to all the players that have contracted COVID-19. Don't at me for anything I've done that has been irresponsible or classified as stupidity. This takes the cake." Dominic Thiem came to defend the world number 1, but Kyrgios doubled down on his comments, stating that smashing rackets, swearing, and tanking a match every once in a while was certainly not comparable to putting everyone's health at risk. He continued saying, "This just shows what a joke Dominic Thiem, Alexander Zverev, and Novak Djokovic think this is. 2 of them partying like potatoes during a global pandemic, people losing lives, loved ones, and friends, and then Thiem standing up for the mistake. These guys are the top of our sport." Djokovic told the New York Times, responding to his critics, saying that he would do the tour again if he had the chance. His actions were right and correct. He followed the rules laid out for him. Things quietened down for a while as the tour slowly began to return for the American summer. After Djokovic's controversial default upon accidentally hitting a lines judge with the ball, Kyrgios posted to Twitter a poll asking the question how many years he'd be banned for if it was him in Novak's position. In the lead up to the 2021 Australian Open, Kyrgios described the world number 1 as a tool online after he had made a list of suggestions to help players during their quarantine. "He's good for the sport. Off the court, I don't have much respect for him, to be honest," said Djokovic. During the tournament, Kyrgios called Djokovic a strange cat, baffled by his lack of respect for him off the court due to his various charitable work with his foundation. He continued saying that he wouldn't take any slack from someone who was partying during the pandemic with his shirt off. When asked if he had a response to this in press after one of his matches, Novak stated that he did not. As Nick walked out onto court for one of his doubles matches with partner Kokkinakis, he imitated the Serb, throwing out his hands to the empty stadium. "Just feeling the love, just trying to spread the good word of the celebration," said Kyrgios. "Everyone loves that celebration. It's well liked." 1 year later, with Australia experiencing harsh lockdowns, players were allowed to return to the first slam of the year and enter the country only if they were vaccinated. Djokovic, who was not, acquired an exemption, however was stopped by border control, creating headlines for weeks on end as he was not being allowed into the country despite following the rules he was given. Kyrgios expressed sympathy for Djokovic during this situation, going on the No Boundaries podcast, stating, "He's a human at the end of the day. I kind of feel sorry for him," not agreeing with how the situation was handled. He continued, "When we had the bushfires, he was supporting us. We're treating him like he's never done anything for us, like he's a villain. He's actually not." Reacting to Australia Immigration Minister Alex Hawke cancelling Novak's visa, Kyrgios said, "This Hawke guy is like, he's a threat to our borders," and I'm like, whoa, no he's not. We're treating him like he's a weapon of mass destruction at the moment. He's literally here to play tennis. Novak reached out to Nick after these comments on Instagram saying thank you for standing up for him. The Aussie continued on the podcast, expressing his frustration with some players' silence on the topic, such as Nadal and Tsitsipas. "Imagine how he's feeling," Nick said. "He probably just wants a little support from other players and he's getting it from me." The Aussie backed Djokovic to win the event, granted he was allowed to play, but unfortunately he was not. Following all this, Nick grew quite the fan base in Serbia, being dubbed Nick the Serb by Serbian player Dusan Lajovic. Being asked in press about this, he stated that it's great, but he would have done it for anyone in that situation, standing up for what he thought was right, using the word bromance to describe their somewhat mended relationship. He carried on, suggesting he might ask him to play doubles sometime in the future. In the lead up to their meeting in the final of Wimbledon, speaking with 9 News Australia, Kyrgios said, "I actually feel like he loves me now. We have a bit of a bromance ever since I was kind of the only player to stand up for him with everything happening back home in Australia." Smiling in response to these comments, Novak said in his press conference, "I don't know whether I can call it a bromance yet, but we definitely have a better relationship than what it was. When it was tough for me in Australia, he was one of the very few players that came out publicly and supported me and stood by me. That's something I truly appreciate. I respect him for that a lot."
Okay, it's officially a bromance.